Pumping that podcast wattage in your cottage, it's Think Digital. Get ready to take the red pill, think different about scaling your business, and free your mind. And now, coming to you live and direct from the Moon, Iowa, the greatest city in the universe, here's your guide, Justin Wise.
There is no spoon.
Pumping that podcast wattage into your cottage, all the way down to your cottage. It's Think Digital. Hey, Justin Wise here with you. I'm the captain on this good ship. Welcome aboard. Today's topic is the right way to scale your Facebook ads. At least that's what my notes say. Show notes will be available, speaking of, at thinkdigital.co/podcast. It's thinkdigital.co/podcast. I want to do an entire show. Well, I want to do two shows. One, I want to do an entire show putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Oh, man. Just totally drive everybody crazy. And then the second show idea I had was doing a show entirely composed of Tupac Shakur quotes. So like Bumblebee on Transformers, who can only speak in radio, I would put together an entire show that the only thing I can use is Tupac song lyrics. Oh my gosh. Nobody would listen to either one of those shows, but it would be hilarious. All right, down to business. The right way to scale your Facebook ads. I'm going to tell you the formula we use here in a second. The formula sounds like this: optimize for quantity, optimize for cost, optimize for quality. I'll unpack that here. But first, let me tell you a little story. Like to hear it? Here it goes. This is scaling ads. Okay, scaling profitable campaigns. It reminds me a lot of the UFC. So if you're not a UFC fan, none of this will make sense to you. UFC, of course, Ultimate Fighting Championship, where two people, now it's guys and gals, two people go into an octagon, 8-sided cage, and proceed to beat the hell out of each other. That's probably what you know UFC as now. But UFC, when it first started, and I've been a fan since back in the day. So UFC started in 93. Well, UFC 1 was in 1993, and I've watched since then. I remember watching the very first UFC. So when it first started, going back and watching UFC 1 right now, it's like watching a sports competition on a different planet, because you had a sumo wrestler. This is for real. You had some sumo wrestler get in the ring with like a kickboxer, and Royce Gracie, who's the small Brazilian dude, ended up winning all of the early ones because he would just get in the ring and jump on people's back and choke the crap out of them. So you look at him now, I don't remember which one it was. It's either UFC like 1 or 2. But back then there was no rules. The only rules were you couldn't poke people. You couldn't poke people in the eye. That was the only rule. I think, and you couldn't bite. You couldn't poke people in the eye, and you couldn't bite. There was no rounds. There was no judges. You just got in there and fought for your life. And there was this one fight. I don't remember who the guys were, but the entire fight was this one guy punching another dude straight in the nuts. Just constant bashing of his testicles. The only way the match stopped was if the corner threw in the towel, the guy gave up, or he was knocked out. And so this guy getting his bits were just getting bludgeoned. He didn't give up. So that is the one lasting memory I have of UFC in the early days. And and the sumo wrestler, the guy who's fighting the sumo wrestler, broke his hand on the sumo wrestler's head. He just kept karate chopping the sumo wrestler's head. Boy, I had Way more fun recalling that than I thought I would. So I share all that because when you look at it now, it just all looks very amateur. So when UFC, when it first started and compared to UFC now, like when you look at UFC now, forget about the dudes beating me up. The ladies doing UFC would take me down in 2 seconds. I have a buddy, Dan, who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I said, Dan, there's no way you're telling me that those women in UFC could beat me up. He said, they would punch your lights out so fast, you wouldn't even know it hit you. These are lethal warriors. These are trained assassins, professionals, training for years and years and years and years in MMA, mixed martial arts, before they compete or before they even get to the point where you can see them on UFC. One punch from these guys and I'm out. One punch from these ladies and I'm out. Totally different sport than when it first started. So old UFC, new UFC. Old UFC amateur, new UFC professional. Now, new UFC couldn't be new UFC if it wasn't for old UFC. So we can't totally write off old UFC. And when it comes to scaling profitable campaigns, how about that for a transition? It started out looking a lot like UFC back in 1993. So when you get a winning ad campaign, when you get an ad campaign that does what you want it to do, it gets you leads at the cost you want, it gets you conversion at the cost you want, you need to start spending more money. And what typically happens, what most people do, is they blast an ad set that's winning, that's doing what you want it to do. They just add more juice, add more fuel to the fire. And what that does is it sends the algorithm into shock, shocks the system. It's too much too fast. Or I shouldn't say it's too much too fast. It's just putting too much into the system the wrong way. It's kind of like if you take too many multivitamins. I learned this the hard way, folks. If you take too many multivitamins, your body doesn't absorb all those vitamins. No, it absorbs a percentage of those vitamins, and then it flushes the rest out. Use your imagination. So back in the day, when I first learned how to start scaling campaigns, you had to do this goofy stuff, like punching people in the crotch to win at UFC. You had to do stuff like taking a percentage of the ad budget and scaling every other day by a certain percentage. Or you had to do these goofy tactics like, turning ad sets off and then waiting for a certain amount of time and then turning back on again, or duplicating ad sets and changing one small aspect of the ad sets. If you don't know this stuff, it's good that you don't know it because you don't need it. It's kind of like watching a kickboxer now, anyway, a kickboxer and a sumo wrestler fight each other. It looks goofy, but for a time and a season, it was helpful in scaling ad campaigns. Okay? So I want to get you out of 1993 and get you into the here and now. Because here's the lethal way to scale your ad campaigns. It's very simple, much like everything on this podcast. It's simple. But simple, ladies and germs, does not mean easy. Already knew that. Justin already knew that. Well, are you doing it? Well, no, but I already knew that. Okay. Well, then talk to me when you actually do it. So this stuff is simple, but it's not easy. So like I told you earlier, the lethal way to scale your ad campaigns is to optimize first for quantity. Next, optimize for cost. Third, optimize for quality. That's it. That's all you need to know. Show over. I'm kidding. Let me talk about these each in depth. First, you're going to optimize for quantity. Whenever we launch a campaign, first thing we need to do is to make sure we're getting the right volume. So we go into every campaign with our Deadly 7 in place. If you don't know, listen to the episode titled Deadly 7. So we go into every campaign with our Deadly 7 in place, and we're running traffic to those core audiences. And the first thing we're going to look for is quantity. Are we getting the quantity of leads that we want? We're getting the right volume. Without this, nothing else really matters. Because if I don't have the right volume, I can't scale my ads. And I'm not going to get into particulars of numbers here because every situation is different. But the volume is basically, hey, what do we need to make this machine go? For us, we know our volume. We know the amount of leads we need to convert into sales. And so we just go back from that. Start with, hey, how many clients do we want this month? How many leads turn into clients? Boom, we know how many leads we need to get.
You're listening to Think Digital with Justin Wise. The next step down the rabbit hole is to sign up for the No Spoon newsletter, a free weekly email designed to increase your productivity, grow your influence, and free your mind. Take the red pill and head on over to thereisnospoon.co to sign up.
So first, we're going to make sure our campaign can get the right volume. Think of this like, water pressure. If you're going to take a shower, you need the right water pressure. Otherwise, it's going to take you a really, really long time to take that shower. We went to Jamaica once, and the water pressure there was horrible. And we actually took showers with our bathing suits on for reasons I will not get into on this podcast. Suffice to say, we weren't quite confident in the, let's say, the cleanliness of our surroundings. It's another story for a different day. The water pressure was horrible, so it took like 800 hours to take a real shower. That's what we don't want to have happen with an ad campaign because we're spending money, right? So if I can't scale my ads, then I'm stuck in first gear with no way to grow, right? I'm stuck in Jamaica with no water pressure, and it takes me 800 hours to take a shower. So we have to make sure we can get the right volume we need to scale. So again, when we launch a campaign, this is the first thing I'm looking for, is the quantity of leads coming in at the volume we need. Can this produce? Now you'll be tempted here to do things like flip into, Facebook has, we don't even use these anymore, so I'm totally blanking on what they're called, lead ads or canvas ads, which as of this recording, I totally hate. Lead ads can get you the volume, but what we've learned through extensive testing and experience, they are miserable in terms of quality. So I wouldn't just shoot straight away to get the volume through lead ads. Lead ads can get you volume, but they're usually very poor quality. And the biggest lever you can pull to optimize for quantity is selecting, all these have to deal with audience, but selecting an audience that's familiar with you. That's how we're going to test this. So once we see that the volume's coming in, we feel like good, the water pressure's moving, it's going, we're going to optimize for cost. I think a shower is a really good metaphor for this, or analogy rather. So quantity is like the water pressure. Next, we're going to optimize for cost. Think of that as your shower temperature. Okay? Are we getting the cost that we want for these leads? See, you can have volume, but if they're costing you an arm and a leg, you're going to go broke advertising, and your advertising won't pay off. It won't generate the return you need to make it a long-term investment for your business. So think of it like cost equals temperature in your shower, right? If you have the right water pressure, but your shower is just freezing cold, that's a miserable experience. That's like really costly leads. If you have the water pressure you want, but the temperature is too hot, same thing. A miserable experience. It's got to be just right. A nice warm shower that you want to stay in all day. Now, this step happens almost simultaneously as the first step. So optimizing for cost, meaning are we getting the leads we want at the cost we want them? They almost happen at the same time. But you got to get the volume, you got to get the water pressure before you can get the temperature, the cost. Make sense? Cost is really, really important though. And generally speaking, the metrics we shoot for, like our base level standard metrics, we don't want to pay more than $10 for a lead if we have a PDF or a PDF lead gen campaign going. We don't want to spend $30 or more for a webinar lead. And we don't want to pay $150 or more for a application or a strategy session or a call. Different people call it different things. So those are the numbers, those are the facts and figures we're optimizing for. Now, third, and where I'll spend a little bit of time, is optimizing for quality. Optimizing for quality. The biggest challenge of any ad campaign by far is getting the quality you need to make the ad spend worth it. So if quantity is your water pressure, cost is the water temperature, quality is your water quality. Now, in the short run, I would not want to make a habit of showering in Jamaica, mainly because the water was like milky. Oh my gosh, that trip, I will never forget it as long as I live. So the quality wasn't the best. You didn't want to get that stuff in your mouth. And after time, that would impact your hair, it would impact your skin. Just go with me on this analogy, okay? I remember when I took a trip to Spain, they told us to not open our mouths in the shower because if you got water and went down the wrong pipe, you're going to be sitting on the toilet for like 3 days. Okay, so quality here for your leads is like quality of your water. It's a huge challenge. Ask Flint, Michigan if water quality is an issue. Okay? And now I talk about this in other episodes, but the easiest way you can implement or rather impact your lead quality is by leveraging other elements of what we call the traffic trinity. Those elements being paid traffic, which we're talking about here, organic content, that's element number 2, and the third element, email marketing, element number 3. 3, trinity, traffic trinity. Paid traffic, organic content, email marketing. If you aren't marketing to people outside of your paid traffic campaigns, you are missing a huge opportunity. And consistently, what I can tell you is what we see with our clients who we run paid traffic for, if they're in the habit of emailing their list consistently and they produce regular content, consistent organic content, they always, not sometimes, not sort of, not occasionally, they always see 2 things, lower lead costs and higher quality in their leads. 100% of the time. That's not occasionally, again, that is 100% of the time. If they're leveraging the 3 elements of the traffic trinity, they always have lower lead costs and higher quality in their leads. It's not a question of if. Now, I wish I could sit here and tell you I can scientifically and systematically and precisely identify why that's the case. I can't necessarily attribute it to any one of those 3 things. What I can tell you is that it is highly likely due to exposure, touch points. When you're creating content, when you have paid traffic going, when you're emailing your list, people just simply see you more often. And that top of mind awareness, it chips away at the human mind. So whether it's forgetfulness or resistance or objections, a prospect, if you are constantly in their viewfinder, you whittle away, you chip away at those objections, at that resistance, or at that forgetfulness. That's why our clients who take the initiative to email their list and produce organic content always see better results, both in lead costs and quality when it comes to lead generation. Listen, anyone can get lead volume going. It's easy. Lead ads, go through a lead out there and put it in front of an audience of about 2 million and you'll get lead volume. Anybody can do it. But where the rubber meets the road is bringing in quality leads. That's where true marketing takes place. And we're not talking about gimmicky ads or clickbait. Gimmicks and clickbait can get you quantity. True marketing gets you quality. Now, how do you optimize for quality? Well, there's a couple things I'll mention before we wrap up for the day. Number 1, as I've mentioned before, the traffic trinity. Leverage the traffic trinity. Paid traffic, organic content, email marketing. Follow your lead around. Take them from one stage of the funnel to the next. Haunt them, pursue them, and then finally vary up the ways that you retarget them. So it may be in one stage, you retarget them with content. In another stage, you retarget them with case studies. A third stage, you retarget them with a podcast episode or a Facebook Live that did really well. You're constantly assaulting them in a nice way with content and ads. It's a 1-2 punch. So again, the right way to scale your ads, simply put, is to optimize first for quantity, then optimize for cost, and finally, optimize for quality. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. I'm going to wrap it up. Tell me one thing that you learned today, one thing that you're going to do different. Hit me up on Facebook. I'm facebook.com/Justin Wise, and let me know. In the meantime, we got a gift for you. A nicely packaged, beautiful, downloadable PDF gift waiting for you at thinkdigital.co/gift. That's GIFT. What it is, can't tell you. Don't know. We switch it up. I have no idea when you're listening to this, but there will always be a gift for you at thinkdigital.co/gift. And if you've been there before and you want to check it again, it might be different. It's a grab bag. It's a crapshoot. Who knows? All right. We'll be back next week with another new episode of Think Digital. In the meantime, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you online. Bye-bye, everybody.
This is the podcastfactory.com.